Hey everyone, welcome back. It's another episode of Small Business Stories. And by now, you know me, the voice, Dr. LL, Loralyn Mears, in here with you, talking to all kinds of incredible business owners, really around the globe now. Season 6 here, we've absolutely exploded. And we're going to be talking today to Athena Brownson. She is a realtor in Denver, Colorado. But not just any realtor. There's a whole lot of layers and dimension to her that we're going to get into. So, with that, Athena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I am definitely well accustomed to your voice now because I have fallen in love with your podcast. So, very happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's always fun when it works that way. A lot of folks come on, their publicists send them, and they're like, yeah, I've never heard of you or your show, but my publicist put me on here. So, what's the deal for the show? And I'm thinking,
You're like so much for research.
yeah, whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
it's all good. I'm always happy because I learn from my guests and I know my
Yeah.
audience always learns something. And just having followed you for a bit, not long, I'll admit, but when you came on my radar, so for you to get on my show, looking at your story, you're really becoming quite the inspiration, especially here right now. It's the Olympics time. We look at Lindsey Vonn, right? The
So
girl's gonna,
exciting.
right? 41, yeah, I'm coming back for the whatever, 20th time, torn ACL. And you've had a similar journey. Now, you're not on the
Very much
Olympic podium,
so.
but you broke a few bones skiing. Athena, set us up first. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. And I am also in awe of Lindsay. She's someone who I did get to ski alongside back in the day. So I was born and raised in a little mountain community called Breckenridge, Colorado. I'm in Denver now. And as one could imagine, growing up in the mountains, I pretty much was on skis when I learned how to walk. I think I was about 2 years old when my dad first put me down the mountain and just said, figure it out. And I did. I figured it out really well because around age 15, I became a professional skier. So what is a professional skier, one might ask? Well, it basically means that I had the opportunity to make money for skiing. I was getting paid by global brands, and that enabled me to travel the globe following snow wherever it was and get money for it at a very young age. So from about 15 to 24, I was skiing about 300, maybe a little bit more days a year. All over, when it was summertime here, I'd head down to the southern hemisphere and hit Chile and Argentina and New Zealand and, not normal things for a young person to be experiencing. But with that incredible travels and the glory of that came a lot of really difficult injuries, which is normal in my sport. You talk about Lindsay and the fact that she just blew her, geez, 100th ACL, it seems. I also, I went through 9 ACL surgeries. I broke my neck. I've had 2 operations on it now. Broke multiple legs, multiple collarbones, wrists, you name it. If I was not on snow, it was because I was rehabbing an injury. But in that mindset and in that world, that is part of the game. If you're going to be throwing yourself off of 100-foot jumps, you're probably going to get hurt here and there. And I did. But honestly, I look at my skiing career and I think that it was the best business and life school that I ever could have asked for. It taught me every principle that I identify with now today. And we'll get into that later in my story, but it was honestly the best life preparation I could have asked for, even though it sounds like, oh, she was just traveling and getting to ski. I had very strict coaches that taught me, the value of discipline and accountability and resilience and just showing up. And those are really things that have stuck with me throughout the rest of my life and have probably saved my life on multiple occasions.
Okay, there's about 6 threads I want to pull there. So we're going to roll them
Yeah.
back for a few. All right. So, first, as a skier, facing those crazy, crazy jumps. Now, I've never done anything that crazy, but I've broken a lot of bones. I'm just that girl.
Mhm.
Yeah, try it, do that.
I
Anyway,
love it.
so what I'm curious about is And I saw somebody doing now the speed skiing, 158 miles per hour. I mean, just
That, that was my dad.
insanity. So I'm curious. Coach Susan Joffers, now deceased, but famously said, feel the fear and do it anyway. When you're in that position, do you even accept or acknowledge fear, or it's just, I'm so focused on the end game, I don't feel the fear? Talk to us about that.
Oh, there is absolutely fear present, but I think what I was trained to do at a very young age was recognize when I was feeling these feelings of fear, anxiety, and really pivot and set my mind to I'm excited. I am, anticipation. Instead of I'm afraid of doing what I'm about to do, taking those same nerves and saying, you know what? No, I'm really excited to conquer what it is that's in front of me. Because honestly, if you don't have that mindset, that is absolutely when you do get hurt. So that's something I've taken with me into my business life as, okay, I'm feeling really anxious, really fearful. Maybe I'm nervous about a client's response. It's like, no, this isn't the feeling of anticipation. I'm going to pivot my mindset and I'm going to go into whatever positive mind frame I can make out of it. But that doesn't mean that fear doesn't exist because it's real.
That's why I thought I'd check in on that. I thought maybe you're looking down, oh, the Alps, and you're thinking, yeah, right, there's some fear. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you're human. Oh, thank you, Athena. That okay, that changes everything. All right. Now we can get into some of these other threads. So beyond the fear and looking at the lessons that it taught you, when did you realize in your journey that skiing isn't going to be my path? I've got this calling to do some other things because you come from a family of entrepreneurs, a lot of land development, real estate, all of these sorts of things that were shaping you as you were trying to literally carve your own path. Pardon the
Yeah.
pun,
Yeah, I love the
right?
pun.
But so when was that switch starting to happen in your brain that, yeah, maybe not this, maybe that?
This that switch actually did not come for me until it was forced to. I had
Mm.
a very one-track mind that I was an athlete and I would continue being an athlete until I was told I could not be. What came after that, I had no idea. My identity was extremely wrapped up with what I was doing, what I was accomplishing, and I had a very one-track mind. Again, I was very young as well. So I didn't hang up the ski boots, so to speak, until one of my lovely orthopedic surgeons looked at me, before I think my eighth knee surgery at the time and said, Athena, you're going to need two knee replacements before you're 30 years old if you keep this up. You have no cartilage left in your knees. We're, about to do the eighth ACL at the time. I think this is if you don't want to do long-term detrimental damage to your body, this is something you need to be cognizant of. And that's really when it hit me, and it hit me hard. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and it was kind of my first quarter life crisis, we'll call it.
Yes, and there will be more to come, but that's a different story, right? So okay, so now you're tracking to all right, can't do this. The body is just telling me no, right? The soul is willing, right? But the body is weak, right?
Indeed.
So how did you parlay that then into I'm going to take all this energy, all this focus, all this determination and the ability to park fear, right? Which is a big thing
Mhm.
and move it forward into the business direction towards real estate. Tell us about
Beautiful.
that
Yeah,
transition.
beautifully said. Trial and error, first of all, lots of falling on my face. So as I mentioned, I had no idea what I wanted to do next. I decided to finish college out. I did that. I studied art history and architecture. I knew that I loved design. As you alluded to earlier, my family was heavily in the world of real estate. My dad was a luxury residential developer. My mom did all of the interior design for his properties. Now, I loved what I saw my mother doing, and which it included, picking out beautiful finishes for these high-end homes and really the creative aspect that went into it. But what I looked at my dad's job as was him dragging me on job sites when I was really young in the freezing cold in Breckenridge. And I really had a negative connotation about real estate because of that. Um, so real estate was not something that ever even dawned on me, but interior design did. So I got a great internship my last year in college with an interior design firm. And after college, I worked with them for about a year and a half. And then all of those, I had no recognition of the skill set that I had picked up from skiing. The ability to visualize and make things happen, the ability to pivot fear into excitement. I hadn't recognized these pieces of me yet, but what I did start to recognize was the fact that I did not like having a cap on my success. I realized that what I was doing in skiing was the greater the input I put in, the more I would get out. So the more I trained, the better I would do. And I wanted to find a career where the harder I worked and the more disciplined I was, it would actually show in the results. And what a dear mentor kind of helped me understand at the time was, Athena, you want to be an entrepreneur. You need to be responsible for your own success, and you need to utilize the tools that these beautiful life lessons have taught you and parlay them into something, where you are in charge of your future and your success, and there's no caps. So I had a dear friend at the time who sat me down, knew I was very kind of feeling creatively frustrated and not in the right place, so to speak. And she said, Athena, what are you doing? You love homes, you love people, you love designing homes. Why are you not in real estate? And I laughed at her. I was like, realtors are a dime a dozen. I don't want to do that. She said, look, just sit down with the owner of my company, pick his brain, see what he has to say, and then you'll at least know if it's something you're interested in or you could check it off the list. I sat down with this gentleman who's still my mentor today, and this was 12 years ago. And he taught me that relationship-based business was the heart of real estate, that I was having the opportunity to help someone with the biggest purchase or sale of their entire life and be a part of a pivotal and very transformative part of their life. And I had never viewed real estate that way. So when he said, he really spent time pouring into me and expressing this, I quit my job the next day and I signed up for real estate school. And I can tell you, I've never looked back. It was the exact thing I never knew I needed.
Ah, and this also speaks to the value of mentorship. I have
Yes.
so many people on my show and in my circle who I'll ask, do you have a mentor? And they'll say, no, should I? Yes.
Multiple.
Yes, you should. Exactly. I've been very fortunate in my life. I've had four mentors. Two have crossed over into the other realm. One, 30 years later, is still my mentor, and the other we've lost touch. But it's amazing the amount of counsel, support, and they really get to know your head. And
Yeah.
and they call BS on you, which I love because it's not a coach going, there, let's hold you accountable. No, it's like,
Mhm.
what are you doing? No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. This is stupid. Think about
And
this.
mentors, like they're the ones that are going to help us see the blind spots that we don't even know we have.
Ex-
Mentorship is like the key of success in my eyes. I really don't believe we don't know what we don't know. And if you don't have someone that can really call you out and be honest, I think you're doing yourself a disservice no matter what field you're in.
All right. On that thread, we're going to pull being honest. Now, I know because that's one of my, I guess, guilty pleasures. I surf Zillow and I'm like, oh, I'd love that house. Oh, look how they did that kitchen. Like, this is what I do. I look and I like to surf and think, oh, where am I going to move next? Because I've lived in a lot of places. So that said, being honest and given your art design background and how you grew up and around luxury properties, which are all really at the top end of what people are going to be able to purchase. And for those of you that don't have the visual experience, if you're dialed in Spotify, iHeartRadio, or whatever, Athena's background here is eclectically curated but artfully placed. She's got a collection of
Yeah.
different things that are there and in the background. So, to get to my question, when you go into someone who's selling their home and they've got pink and orange polka dots in one room and green shag in another room, what do you say?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things actually is being able to help um transform spaces. And but like you said, you have to do this in a very tasteful way because someone's home looks a certain way because it is a reflection of them. It's very personal. And the last thing you ever want to do is go in and offend someone. But instead, what I like to say is, look, our goal right now is to be able to create almost a blank canvas for someone. I stage every property that I sell. I make sure that everything is extremely well curated, but I make sure that it's almost a little bit bland because someone needs to be able to walk into a property and imagine what their life is going to look like in it. So although your life looks like this expression and it is, it's great. I'm glad that you are able to show your personality through your design. But our goal right now is to get you into the next chapter of your life where you can build that space once again. And in order to do that successfully and to really maximize the return on your investment, we need to be able to appeal to the greatest demographic possible. And in order to do that, we don't want to limit you to the people that love just, polka dotted walls and green shag carpet. We want to make sure that we're appealing to the widest variety of human available. And in order to do that, here are my recommendations. If you don't have the finances to do that, we have creative ways of getting that done prior to closing, of course, prior to even putting the house on the market. And we can do it really cost effectively. And here's a few great contractors that'll get it done for us. So I like to come in with like a foolproof solution that makes it feel a lot less overwhelming versus walking in, telling them that they need to change A, B, C, and D, and then walking out the door. It's Here's the full package of how we're going to make this transformation to get you to where you want to be next. That's my approach.
And isn't that the whole essence, though, of sales, right? I'm not talking about
Exactly.
the relationship, but any solution that you have, it's not just click a button, go away, and go do.
Yeah.
People are overwhelmed with the conundrum of choice. Should I do this? Should I do that? What should I do? They want somebody to say, here you go, Laurelyn. I'm going to take you. I'm going to
Yeah.
guide you. Because this is where you want to go, right? Do you want to go here? Yeah. Is that where you want to go? Yeah. Okay. Follow me. This is how we're going to get there. That's what people want. And I think that's when people lose the deal, literally in your case with a closing or whatever product people are selling, is if they don't recognize that they've got to stay involved.
And honestly, that is where relationship is built. When you are, guiding them and holding their hand through these very emotional decisions. Your home, again, is your biggest asset. So it is very emotional. So one of the things I love most about what I do is the fact that I do get to be that sounding board and voice of reason and say, I know that this is a lot, but you are not alone, and I'm going to guide you every step of the way. I'm not going anywhere. And that includes far after the closing table. Most of my clients become lifelong friends, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like I have the best job in the world.
Excellent. Now, earlier in the podcast, you talked about how competitive sports brought in adaptability, right? The tenacity, and then resilience and discipline. You used the D word. I
I
want you to pull
did.
on that a little bit. Talk about that.
Yes, and you know what? Discipline looked a lot different for me as a skier than what it does now in my career and what it has. So in skiing, if I had a coach that told me to be somewhere at a certain time, if I was not there at that time, if I was a couple of minutes late even, I was going to be, for instance, doing burpees in my ski boots between every run, or maybe hiking the mountain, or pulling net at the end of the day. So that, there was very strict accountability for if I did not do what I said I was going to do. Now, when I think of the word discipline now, I do not have negative connotations to it. I think more so as discipline being a promise to myself. So what are the things that I'm promising myself that I'm going to, how am I going to show up? What am I, what are my top three priorities for the day? What does my calendar look like, and am I sticking to it? To me, discipline is really just following up on your own promises to yourself, and then having accountability to make sure you're getting that done. And sometimes that looks like outside accountability, or sometimes it's tracking it on your own and seeing how you did at the end of the week. But I think that there has to be some level of, I'm gonna do what I say I'm gonna do. Otherwise, maybe I'm gonna have to work some extra hours to make up for it. And, I've definitely been guilty of maybe being a little bit of a workaholic from these tendencies I picked up in skiing. I've had to work on boundaries quite a bit, but I do think, discipline and accountability can be positive and are very important tools for using in a successful business.
I'd go so far to say, and an outsider, and I want you to challenge me or say yes, Laurelyn, or no, Laurelyn, right? We're
Mhm.
having a conversation. It's all good. No pets, no people are going to be hurt through the outcome of this conversation. It's all good. That I think that's part of your stickiness in your brand, in your following, in your connection, because you keep it real,
Mhm.
right? You're inspiring people and saying, hey, I'm not going out there and telling everybody, yeah, overnight success, just close your eyes, boom, and your Instagram's going to light up and you're going to have 40 people lined up to sell their homes this week, right? It's not how it works. And so I think that's part of your magnet is that
Well, thank
discipline.
you.
What do you think? What makes you such an inspirational character to the
You,
people that are in your network?
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I honestly believe it's authenticity. Like you said, I am an open book. I talk just as much about my struggles, whether it's in business or health or life, as I do about my triumphs. And I'm very honest, I'm very open, and I think that vulnerability gives people the opportunity to do the same and to be comfortable and vulnerable and authentic. And when you're living in your truth, when you're speaking from a place of authenticity, I believe that's where magnetism comes into play. When we're acting and showing up as our highest selves, our frequency is at a high vibration, and then we're magnetic. And trust me, when I get in those dips of whether it's feeling sorry for myself or being frustrated with a deal that's happening or whatever it is, if I allow myself to get stuck in that place, I can't tell you how clearly I notice that I am not being magnetic. I am not attracting the type of client that I want to work with. I'm not attracting great opportunities into my life because I'm focusing on whatever mud I'm stuck in at the time. So really, authenticity is, I think, a superpower, and it's one that I try and really, really lean into.
Do you think that you had to learn that through hardships, right? That was actually where the learning happens rather than around those smooth edges? Or do you think if someone had just told you that, yeah, 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 all the fun and everything happens not in the curves and the smoothness, but on the sharp and the rough and the low edges? Do you think people have to experience it until they can figure out, yeah, I've got to look at my mindset, I've got to look at what I'm projecting because this is what I'm experiencing? How does all that come to play? Like,
Oh,
where do people
that
catch up?
That's such a beautiful question. And honestly, I look at my life, and like I said, as a skier, I identified so much in what I was doing, how I was performing, what accolades I was receiving, and my identity was very tied into what I was doing. Now, fast forward to later on in life, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and going from being a professional athlete that's at the top of my game to barely being able to move or get out of bed or just think clearly. It it forced me to slow down, and it was it has been the most challenging journey of my life. But when I look at who I am as a person now, compared to who I was as as a professional athlete and in my younger years, had I not gotten sick, had I not gone through the most, deeply dark days of my life, I would in no way have any self-awareness to be able to look inward and understand who I am as a person, what authenticity I can portray because I'm aware of who I am, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are. Um, Really, it taught me who I was, and it taught me everything valuable that I cherish today. And I really don't think that you go through life and you learn, who you are when things are all going well and everything's smooth and peachy. And I really believe that it is during the most difficult times in our lives that we learn what we're really made out of, and we learn to be in touch with our bodies. We learn how to take care of ourselves, what our non-negotiable needs are. And I honestly believe that, anyone going through adversity will one day look back and understand, oh, I did become the person I am today because I had to, because I was in a position where I needed to evolve my mind, my growth, or I was going to be, stuck in the mud and deeply depressed and probably get myself sicker and sicker. So unfortunately, it took a lot of very, very difficult years, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because it's taught me more about myself than anything ever could. And I think that's where that authenticity is able to shine through because it's like I've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly, multiple times, and I'm here. Here is my good, bad, and ugly, and let's talk about it.
And for many folks, I know I've had conversations and they say, oh, yeah, yeah, Lyme disease, whatever, tick bites, you get a little sick. It's kind of like flu,
Yeah.
but it's a perpetual flu. Whatever you're willing to share that you're comfortable, what can you tell our audience about Lyme disease? And then in the context of how in the heck do you have a booming business given, right, the severity of
Yeah.
what happens with Lyme disease? Can you touch on that to the
Yeah.
extent you're
I,
comfortable?
I'm once again open book. So I knew absolutely nothing about Lyme disease. I've never even seen a tick. I have no idea when I was bit, but I was, as a skier, I was in a lot of heavily wooded areas. I also lived on a farm in Uganda for about 6 months where I was getting bit by things all the time. And what chronic Lyme does is it basically lays dormant in your system until something weakens your immune system enough that it's able to take over. So for me, I was going in for a neck operation. And, again, I was extremely healthy leading up to this, but I needed to have my neck work done. I was getting some synthetic discs put in. And when I was recovering, I started to get all of these really strange illnesses. I got E. coli, I had multiple GI infections. I started to get this chronic fatigue that was like trying to think through a bowl of jello, it felt like. There was nothing that could possibly get me through the fatigue and brain fog I was experiencing. And then it progressed to having such severe joint pain, not in my newly repaired neck, but in the knees that I had blown out, in elbows that I had never hurt in my life, in my hands that became almost barely usable for years. And what Lyme does is it actually attacks whatever your genetic weaknesses are. So for some people, it might show up as rheumatoid arthritis. For others, it could just be chronic fatigue. And I say just, it could be chronic fatigue and chronic pain. For others, it can be psychiatric. And for me, it triggered multiple autoimmune diseases. So I quickly, it cascades very quickly. I was diagnosed, and within about less than a year's time, I was almost bedridden. And this is coming from someone, again, that had been through almost 17 surgeries up to that point. I'm a very tough person, and I would say that every surgery I've ever been through was a walk in the park compared to a day going through, facing Lyme disease. I still do 4 plasma transfusions a month. They take all the blood in my body out twice, take out 7 pounds of plasma and replace it with filtered plasma. It is an extremely, extremely scary disease that has not really had very much awareness brought around it until very recently. I read a stat today that said 1 in 7 people in the globe will be diagnosed with Lyme disease in the next year. So it's something to be very aware of, because if you do get bit by a tick and you know that you were bit, go to the doctor. They'll give you 3 weeks of doxycycline and you'll never have to worry about it again. It's when you get bit and you don't do anything about it, or you get bit and you don't know you were bit, that unfortunately it can completely derail your life, and it's not curable. You can get it into remission. I'm actually in remission right now after 9 years of treatment. So exciting. But it's not something that's curable. It's an all-consuming, the shape of the Lyme cell is a screw. So it screws itself into every single one of your cells. It goes through the blood-brain barrier. There is not one part of the body that is not affected by Lyme disease. So just avoid it at all costs.
Oh, it's terrible. And I
Yeah,
really appreciate you sharing that because
yeah,
as part of the show too, right? Highlighting different things that people don't know. And
yeah,
Lyme disease is not for the faint of heart. No, like let's not poo-poo that. It's a very
yeah,
real thing. And as a cancer survivor on that 1 in 8, so breast cancer, you
yeah.
think 1 in 7. That's just about everybody you know. In every circle you're in, someone's going to be impacted. So this is a PSA. So thank you for that, Athena, right? Like, hey,
Of
if you
course.
got bit, even before you see the ring, get
Mm.
the medication.
Just do it. Yeah. And I didn't answer the second part of your question in terms of business. When I was diagnosed, I was still operating under a place of, I was an only child and a one-man sport, professional skier. I did not know how to ask people for help. I did not know how to delegate. I was under the mindset that if I needed to get, a huge set of tasks done, that I needed to be the one that did it. And you can definitely call that control issues. But what it made me do was take a step back and recognize that I had a very finite amount of time during the day that I was actually able to be useful and to work with a clear head. Granted, that might have been from bed some days, and it was multiple days. But what I recognized was A, that I needed to learn how to use my time extremely efficiently. So I started, time blocking. I started doing like the Pomodoro method, where I would focus on one thing for 20 minutes and then go to the next. But what I also recognized was that I couldn't do it alone. And I built a team around me. Again, trial and error. I had a lot of flops before I found the right people, but I found people that excelled in the things that I did not excel at. I figured out what my strengths were, what my weaknesses were, and I found people that could complement those. And that I knew were my support system, that if I was having a plasma transfusion, that they could meet my clients. And it taught me just the value of teamwork and of having people around you that you can truly trust with your life and your business. And I was extremely fortunate to find that. And that's really what's enabled me to continue to succeed and grow my business, and honestly, it's probably what saved my life, because having a business that I love so much and having the right people around me, it kept me moving forward. It kept my eyes looking ahead versus if I was just sitting thinking about how bad I felt all the time. I think that would have been my death sentence. So work finding my passion and having the most amazing humans around me has been a godsend, to say the least.
So the first part of that, time management using time blocking and Pomodoro methods, I
Yeah,
am all over that. That is my whole thing, except I do the 25 minutes and 5 minutes break. I don't do the 20. I do the 25, but
love it.
yeah. And then you talk about the power of identifying people who can complement your strengths. To me, when I'm looking to help people and support my clients, it's all about figuring out, are you willing to acknowledge what you're good at and what you're not? Because if you're threatened by the people who are doing really well at the things you're not doing well at, you will never succeed in leading your team because you need those people to do those things that you suck at, or you're not going to be successful as a group or even as an individual. And people don't get
100%.
that.
It's so important. And honestly, my mentor is the one that after I failed a couple times at hiring, an assistant, he's the one who said, Athena, what kind of personality tests are you bringing into play? How are you really understanding what someone's skill sets are? And do they recognize what their skill sets are as well? Because if they're coming to you with a resume that is just saying, they're proficient or at every single thing that is possible, that's not possible. We need to understand where our strengths and weaknesses are, and I think that's a really important part of managing and hiring a team is, are they in touch and aware of where they excel and what areas they don't excel in, so that we can also hire that position efficiently. Because if they're just going to promise you the world and then, only succeed at a quarter of that, then it's not a good situation to be in.
No, and I'm curious which personality tests and things you look at. I'm a huge fan of the Forbes, now Gallup, Strengths Finder, Enneagram test, color personality. What do you use, Athena?
I mean, Gallup, I use Enneagrams, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love just the disc personality test. I'm trying to think of one I did recently that I haven't used hiring. I'll have to,
Myers-Briggs?
Oh, that's another great one that I've used for hiring, but that's not it. But it'll come to me eventually. But you pretty much just nailed it with all of those. And I always say, use more than one personality test because they all bring out very different parts of what embody who you are as a human. The disc test and the Enneagram are going to be very, very different, but they're both extremely important in understanding yourself and your hires.
For me, it was then Forbes when it
Mhm.
came out as Strengths Finders, and I'll get the years wrong, 20 some years ago, because they've had the version two. But whenever it came out,
Love it.
it changed my life. And I'll tell you how. Just indulge me just quickly. What it did was say, forget about these 24, 25 strengths. Focus on the three you're good at and forget about the 21 you're not. Bring in people who are good at those things and nail your three. And my goodness, that's what I did. I'm a woo, win others over. So influence, communication's my number two, and strategy is my number three. So am I in the right stick? Yes. And so it freed me up. And then I did it again 20 years or 25, whatever it was. Years later, when they
Mhm.
came out with the next versions, they added more strengths, but whatever. Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Isn't
Didn't
that
change.
incredible how that
Yeah, it
happens?
was
Yeah.
cool.
It teaches you so much about yourself and really where you should be allocating your time. I think it's a gift that anyone can give themselves.
Agreed. Now, I'm curious, through all of this, chronic Lyme disease, I mean, you said you've put plastic discs in your neck. Okay, never mind the other 200 broken bones that you've had.
Mhm.
Changing and having to leave the sport and the thing that you identified with and loved, and being forced to make some very difficult and new choices. Have you learned to be kinder to yourself?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I can't tell you how difficult it was for me when I was first diagnosed to give myself permission to rest and give myself permission to not necessarily be running around product and quote unquote being productive. It made me it gave me such a greater awareness of self and of what my body actually needed, because if I didn't listen to that, then I could die, like the unfortunately it took something that extreme for me to recognize that I didn't have to push through every single thing in front of me, that I needed to be kinder to myself and that I needed to be okay with showing up in whatever way I was able to that day. And to me, kindness really became checking in with myself and recognizing, okay, you know what, today my win is going to be making it from the bed to the couch. That's going to be my win, and I'm going to celebrate it. Because if I don't celebrate it, I'm going to be beating myself up, and I'm, going to be in a negative headspace that just makes you sicker because you're producing cortisol and it's flooding your body. And it's kind of a perpetuating cycle. So absolutely, it gave me a sense of self-love that I didn't learn from anyone prior.
Wow. I mean, that's, I think,
It,
says everything about you. And do your clients in Denver, so you've got a lot of them, do they look to you for that? And they're attracted and drawn to you because of that energy you're putting out, and they've heard from referrals, or they're like, hey, dial up a realtor. Yeah, this one's in my neighborhood. I saw a sign there. What do you think drives
yeah.
people to choose you? Athena Brownson, right?
Yeah.
Realtor in Denver.
True, 98% of my business is either a past client referral, or a referral of a close friend or someone in my sphere. So my business is very much built upon, the deep relationships that I have built with people along the last 10 years. And because if you are the trusted advisor that can actually be trusted and that has proven and shown that you have their best interests at heart far beyond the closing table, I know that my clients, 3 years after buying a house, are going to call me if they need a recommendation for a contractor or a roofer or whoever it may be, because they know that I genuinely care and will refer them the best of the best. And in return, they refer me their loved ones. And it's a huge, it's a huge gift to be able to be entrusted with such a pivotal part of someone's life. But my business is built in relationships, and with that comes the fact that I get to work with people that are very closely tied to my sphere, and not a ton of cold calls.
Which makes life, oh my goodness, so much
Oh, it's
easier. But
great.
again, in your overnight success, right, you earned that because we all know overnight success is garbage.
Oh
Right?
my gosh, years and years and years and years of extremely hard work, and hey, lots of cold calls back in the day. I had to pick up the phone and dial nonstop to get where I am today.
Right, that's what it takes. It takes work to be an entrepreneur. And so many people gloss over that. They think, oh, passive income.
I wish.
I know, right? No, no.
Uh, doesn't exist. But you know what? It's so much more rewarding when you're really putting your heart, your soul, all your energy into what it is that you're doing. And that passion is magnetic. That is what is going to draw people in to want to work with you, that are aligned in how they want to work and do business and do life. And it makes it so it doesn't feel like you're working when you're with people that are, really aligned with where you're at. It's pretty special.
If you could put like a billboard or something over your head, again, for those not having the visual experience, what would you want people to see and be drawn to and say, Athena Brownson, dot, dot, dot? What do you want them to see?
That's an excellent question. I could see so many different things, honestly. I just imagined my face on a billboard, first of all, and I was like, ah. Um, Athena Brownson is resilient. I am a resilient human being. Athena Brownson sees you. I love, authentically getting to know and understand people. Athena Brownson is kind and compassionate. I think being ill taught me an entirely different level of compassion, where that really made me aware of the fact that you never know what someone is going through. Most of my health journey, I have looked extremely, normal to someone passing by, but they didn't know that inside my body, I was fighting for my life. So it gave me a whole different awareness of what people may be going through, and the compassion that is necessary in order to give people like the time to be seen, and to not just gloss over, oh, that person's successful because this, or that person's, I think we make a lot of judgments and we make judgments aside from compassion. So I would hope that people would think I was resilient and compassionate.
There you go. And people need to be more compassionate too. That's the thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the arcs of the story that we had here, that you never know what people are going through. Other entrepreneurs, everyday people, reach out, right? You don't know the difference that a smile can make. Just that little connection just might take someone from being, this is the worst ever, to maybe I can get through the day.
And you know what? I've been that person where, I'm feeling like there's no way I can get through the day, no matter, or whatever it was I was going through. And, the barista being extremely kind and drawing a smiley face on my cup, or the person holding the door smiling and asking how your day is. You never know how that small act of kindness, that small interaction is actually be changing someone's life. And we need it now more than ever. We need compassion and love, and I would say kindness, pass it on. That's a great billboard.
Oh, for sure. I'm all about that. Mine would be kind to people and pets,
Oh, I
because
love
that's
that. And
just, yeah.
pets, yes.
Yes, 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 all those little animals. So, as we're getting near the end of our show, how can people find you? How can they work with you to buy and sell their homes in the Denver area? Where can they find you? How can they get all this source of inspiration and energy and compassion? Where can they find
Oh,
you?
well, thank you. And, I will send you to my Instagram because it has my phone number, my email, my website. And, you know, whether you're interested in real estate or you're going through something and you need an ear, please don't hesitate to reach out. I don't bite, I promise. But you can find me on Instagram. It's Athena Brownson Realtor. And I also put out about a video a day with some good tips and tricks about real estate or different properties I'm touring. So it makes it really fun. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for you.
It is a wonderful Instagram page. I will definitely say that. And
Thank
so,
you.
before we go, last question. And you're a fashionista, so I'm very curious what this one's going to be. So it's my signature question. 300 plus guests have been asked this. If we got to peek into your closet, and there was a pair of footwear, boots, sandals, whatever it is, that personifies who you are, Athena Brownson, what are we looking at, and why is that footwear you?
I should send you a picture of my closet because you would laugh so hard. I am 5'0" on a good day. I am a tiny little thing. So my shoe of choice is a large platform heel. It's got to have the good chunky platform in the front so that it doesn't hurt your feet all day. But I tell you, if they're brightly colored, maybe like a hot pink platform with an all black outfit, I'm feeling fierce and like I can conquer the world. And I've got a little bit more height.
That's so Barbie, right? It's like exactly,
Right?
it would be like the splash of pink, like I'm black, I look like widow chic, but there's the
A
spark
little
of color,
splash.
right? I'm not
Definitely.
surprised. So, with that, this is our end of our show, and Athena, you've been an absolute delight, and I really appreciate you sharing your journey, talking to us, inspiring other entrepreneurs that if Athena can build a mega business crippled with the chronic pain of Lyme disease and do it from her bed, you can build a business too. You can do this.
You
Stay
can do
focused.
this. Thank you so much for having me. You're an absolute joy, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Athena.